How can we make cultural diversity to a profitable business in the future?
Well, first of all, any cultural organization that doesn't cater for the majority of its potential audience is missing out on an important part of its market. Most people are not belonging to a fairly narrow elite part of society. So if you have to understand that disabled people, black people, migrants, women, all other kinds of groups who are not well represented are also members of markets with money to spend. So there's a very straightforward self-interest in being able to offer cultural services, cultural products that these people want to buy. But I'm not comfortable with the basic premise of your question. I think that we live in a society where being profitable and financially managed consumption is the only acceptable form of human activity. That wasn't always the case, and I don't think it will be the case in future if we're going to have any kind of future as a sustainable society and planet.
Many people see cultural diversity as a problem. What is your opinion about that?
Cultural diversity is a reality. Of the countries in the world, more than a quarter have 2 or more official languages. More than half the population of the world speaks 2 or more languages. Monocultural people are the minority in the world. Out of the 192 member states of the United Nations, only 42 have a state religion. That means that most countries don't have any single state religion. Why? Because they are diverse countries. If you look at Britain and say, when was Britain not culturally diverse? Before the Romans came? Before the Angles came and the Saxons? Before the Vikings? Before the Huguenots? Before the Jews? Before the Pakistanis? Before the Bangladeshis? We're a country that is made up of successive movements of population, successive peoples, and every one of those peoples has adapted themselves and changed British culture and brought new ideas and new possibilities and enriched who we are. So I think that the starting point is to accept what is, rather than try and wish for some idealized ethnically or culturally homogeneous world which has never existed.
Do you think that it's necessary to implement intercultural policies?
It is necessary for democracies to treat all of their citizens in the same way. That is the basis of citizenship in a democracy, that citizens are equal. In reality, of course, because we live in an imperfect world, there are people who do not have full, free and equal access to participating in the society that they live in. That's the challenge. It's a political and moral and ethical challenge, not a cultural challenge. It's about how we run our societies in ways that live up to the ideals that they subscribe to, the ideals of free and equal citizenship.
Do you think political systems are updated to this cultural diversity situation?
Democracy is a volatile and changing idea. Democracy in Denmark is not the same as democracy in France or in the United States or in India. Democracy changes and it evolves. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. It's still, in my view, democracy can be challenging. Winston Churchill said, democracy is the worst system of government except for all the others. And I think what he was saying is building a good democracy is difficult and frustrating, and it produces tensions and it produces resentments and unhappinesses, but it also produces ways to solve those things. And they're the only fair and equitable ways that human beings have invented, which is to solve them through dialogue and discussion and negotiation. And so, yeah, democracy is not a fixed thing. It changes depending on the time and the place. You know, it's less than 100 years since women in Britain had the vote. You know, that's a different kind of democracy. It's in my lifetime, the voting age was reduced from 21 to 18. Maybe it'll go down to 16. Democracy is a changeable, adaptable thing that reflects the values of the people of the society, and that's why it's important, because it does reflect that. It's not a fixed thing like a ruler that you can just apply to a society and make the society fit. Democracy fits societies.
Why do you think it's so difficult to put cultural diversity in practice in society when we have so many charters like human rights, and we have the FN's Cultural Diversity Convention that many countries sign? So why is that so difficult to put it in practice?
Is this conversation difficult? Are you finding it difficult to talk to me, given that we come from different ethnic, cultural, historic, social, geographical backgrounds? I don't think so. I don't feel that. I don't experience that difficulty in talking to people, in working with people of all kinds of cultures and backgrounds. I find difficulty sometimes in talking or working with people who have very different values from me, who have different political ideas, who have different ethical bases. But I don't think it's difficult. I think the difficulties that we think of as coming from cultural diversity or being related to cultural diversities are the inherent difficulties that exist in all democratic societies about the distribution of resources and power and access and authority and rights. And they're just expressed in culture because culture is visible, and it's easier to talk about that than to talk about whether people have fair access to the resources of a society. But the reason there are tensions in societies are reasons of politics and democracy, not reasons of culture, I believe.